Hey, good morning everyone. Kaye here on my homestead in Tennessee. Well, we got hit with a surprise storm yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to show you how things are progressing. It's the middle of June, and things are looking pretty good, except for this whole area here on the driveway. If you had told me that 5 years ago that I would be okay with a full-size snake living right under that tarp there on the driveway, I would have said, you gotta be nuts, you gotta be crazy, you're crazy. No, but you know, there is one, and it's not poisonous, and it doesn't bother me. Isn't that how you condition? You can become conditioned. So anyway, I want to take you around. If you've been following my channel, you know I have a large area, a number of garden areas on this hill. Because I live on a hill, I had to develop garden areas here and there, wherever the sun was hitting, because I have a lot of trees. I'm not going to do the walking on camera because it takes too long, but we're going to take a look at all the areas and just see where things are. And I haven't even been down to the lower garden. I looked through the binoculars towards the end of the storm, and the corn really looked beaten down, and it was so gorgeous in the sun the day before. I'm so sad I didn't get that on film, but I was just too tired. So let's take a look around and see where things are. Thanks for being here. Let's go. This is my overwintered pepper, and it is loaded. These are kind of the same heat as a cayenne, but it's got a lot. It's probably 50 peppers on here. When they ripen, I like to take one of these and just slice it fresh over my scrambled eggs or something in the morning. So good. Over here, this was my absolute best tomato, and it's in a pot, but it just developed so well under the grow lights. I haven't seen this. This just happened since yesterday. I've got all of this dead material, and I'm hoping it's just from the heat and it's going to recover, but it's on all these newer shoots. Well, not just the newer ones, but it's been in the 90s, and it's been hard to keep this watered, and I had just decided yesterday that I'm going to have to put it on the side of the driveway because it just gets too hot on this driveway in the 90-degree heat in a black pot. So you might want to keep that in consideration if you're trying to grow edibles in pots on your driveway and it's over 90. BJ. Hi. Now I'm going down, but I want you guys to stay up here, okay? So this is the state of my raised bed garden right now. I have 8 beds, 4 6x8, 4 are 4x8, and I have a volunteer, well I have more than one. I have 3 big volunteer, I believe this is Lemon Queen. If you've ever grown Lemon Queen sunflower, they make very tall shoots and multiple heads. So highly recommend Lemon Queen. That's what I grew for the very first time I had a garden and grew sunflowers in California. And I'll put the link right up here. You can see I was a pretty green gardener, you know, green meaning, and I just started gardening, you know, 13 years ago. So I have a video of Lemon Queens, and my big problem in California was there was a wild parrot group, the Nande. I'll have to put the name on the screen. I forget the name of the parrot, but they were so gorgeous to look at, but they absolutely would destroy my sunflowers. They would come and eat on them before they would open. That, you know, they would still be green and kind of clustered like this before the yellow opens up, and they would destroy them and just pull them apart. And I have this one short video, just like a 2-minute video, where there's like 10 parrots on 10 sunflowers tearing them apart. Anyway, there would be a lookout parrot that would be across on my neighbor's tree, across a little street, and he or she would be watching when I wasn't there. I would go inside and I'd come back and they would all be on the sunflowers. Oh, it was challenging. It was also very interesting looking to see those beautiful parrots. All right, so in the raised beds, I still have cool season vegetables in the shade over here, also shaded. The shade cloth is critical when the sun is like 90 degrees and it's beating down. I put in fresh herbs in the next bed, along with the sorrel, which is perennial. It overwinters here. It's like a lemon sorrel. Well, the first round died because I didn't water them enough. And then the second round I put in were dug up the next morning, presumably by raccoons, because they're digging for grubs, you know. Then I've got strawberries. The deer were eating my strawberries, so I put netting. I ran out of black netting, which I much prefer, and I had this blue-green neon netting, and I got the 2 strawberry beds covered so they can't just, it's like they had one of these hedge trimmers and they just go in like that. You come out and the strawberries are beautiful, and the next morning they look like they've been hedge trimmed by the deer. And I've just got the dregs, the tail end of all that amazing wild lettuce. Check out those videos for the tincture down here. And I'm going to be getting rid of that because they get covered with powdery mildew. Yeah, just like the red clover. So, and then I have potatoes. The deer did a number on the potato bed too, but I think they're set, and I've got a lot of great potatoes in there. The asparagus is winding down. They have their own bed down in the far corner. You've seen me eating a lot of asparagus. And then I've got the one bed. I actually found somebody to redo that one last bed, and he's supposed to come on Thursday, so I'll have a report on that. All right, let's head down to the terraces. We have worked so hard on the terraces. The tomato terraces were carved out with, I hired a man with a skid steer, and he also had a truck, and he brought topsoil, and of course the man that worked for me the first year supervised the whole thing. And they carved out, because this is a hill, he carved out 2 flat terraces, and my intention and has been to grow tomatoes on a string. So I have a video on that. I'll put that up there. And that has had some like really good results and some not, because last year I had no time for the terraces and it just all grew up in weeds, even after I planted them. All grew up in weeds and it was ridiculous. So I have more help this year. I have this young helper, and we've spent a lot of time on it, tilled it 3 times, and the crabgrass still is just insane. But I got down weed paper. I finally found the best, it's like a pin that you put down to hold the paper, and I'll be talking about that. But let's go see the condition after the storm yesterday. It was all perfect. The plants, I put in 10 initial tomato plants on the string, and they're now 4 feet tall, and they're doing well. Got tomatoes on them. For all the rest, I hadn't finished the tilling and all of that, so they didn't get planted until we had the heat wave. And I put in all the last of the dregs of the tomatoes I had started, because all the good tomatoes were already planted elsewhere, and they died. And then I put in whatever else I had, other plants, anise, hyssop, peppers, whatever was left that I hadn't planted, it all went in there. They died. And finally got the second shade cloth on, and I thought, well, that'll help protect those young plants to get, give them a chance to get going before the sun just cooks them in the ground. So it's a lot to water if it doesn't rain. And so on Saturday, we got soaker hoses put on the 2 terraces. So let's go down. This is kind of a staging operation here. All the cedar is going to get used on Thursday, and I'm hoping to have just a table put here, because it's great to have a table under the shade tree for working, for setting things out. These are the last of my starts. This is actually called true hyssop, and I have another almost full tray of this. And this, believe it or not, is that Formosa lily that I seeded in February. Somehow I managed to keep that alive, and that's how far along it is. So it takes a really long time. My blueberries exist between my raised beds and my first tomato terrace, and I have harvested, they're not a pint, I don't think. I think they're only 11 ounces, I'm not sure, but you know those little blueberry containers? I have harvested, I think 6 total off of them so far. There's another round. I've gotten all the first ones. The very first ones after all that rain were absolutely sweet, plump, and delicious. And then the last 3 were like harder and not as sweet and disappointing. But still, it's homegrown blueberries with no chemicals. So there's something in that. That would be the milkweed that's laying over. You know, that's another great thing about the shade cloth is it does keep the rain from beating things down. You know, you can till 3 times and be on your hands and knees digging away for days. Look what the wind revealed. This was underneath the paper now for a week at least. And look at all that crabgrass. And that connects, it comes from over here and it just goes through. All of these plants have suffered. Most of them have been replaced. Now that was quite a wind because I've got, these are full 2-inch cedar and they're not light. So that's going to need to be fixed. Might as well dig up that crabgrass while it's exposed. The second terrace did better. I had planted cucumbers, seeded them in the house, and they waited so long, they got into that aphid infestation. They didn't make it out here. Actually, one did. There's one up in the front, I think. The paper is still kind of in place down here, and we just seeded this whole thing with 2 kinds of cucumber. I see some bug damage, not a lot. Probably need to be thinned out. I went kind of overboard with seeds because it was so late. I've got 2 eggplant. Eggplant was another thing that really got hit with aphids. That's a tomato that came up there. There's a few more tomatoes and peppers, and I've also got ground cherry and tomatillo in here. So hopefully this nice rain will keep everything nice for a few days because the entire week is going to be 90 plus. Okay, just a quick peek at my flower garden, which is overgrown with weeds and also things that I planted. I had to put an electric fence because the deer got in here and ate the tops off of the, about half of the tall sunflowers. I had a double electric fence around this last year because I had roselle in here and they love to eat the roselle. I've only got 1 hot wire this time, but I've also got an inside wire fishing line, and I'm hoping that that helps. Also, we planted some watermelons in here. We've spent a lot of time pulling weeds, and there's a lot more to go, and I want to talk about it further in a separate video. So let's move on. This is the 3rd terrace where I planted potatoes the Ruth Stout method last fall. Big job covering it with hay. Had the hay down at the lower garden, had to haul it up here. Got a video on that. I'll put the link up in the corner if you want to see. Now it looks like the storm kind of messed up one of these little food covers. They're like little umbrellas. Underneath each one of the row there, I planted one moringa seed and hoping those come up. Didn't want to take a chance that they might come up and get eaten because this is just I've got one fishing line around the perimeter of this, as well as the white cord. The deer can easily jump in here, so I've got them covered now, and I've got probably 2 weeks to figure out what to do about this area for deer before I have anything to worry about under these covers. Oh, and by the way, the potatoes were harvested and they're drying in the garage. The potatoes didn't come up in the fall, they came up in the spring, some of them. Okay, this is my vineyard, so-called, 9 vines. And I did have these pruned back in February. I've got a bumblebee here. Uh-oh. The bumblebee is actually on a weed down there. That is the Carolina horse nettle. You need gloves to pull that out. It's under there. I've historically had a lot of Japanese beetles. I really worked on those last year. And this year I just haven't had the time to do anything. So I'm going to get what I get here. I do see grapes, and I need to come down and pick up anything that's laying on the ground so they don't rot. Okay, this is the meadow, and I went over that in a wonderful video. I hope you'll check it out. I'll put the link up above. And I see that this storm has kind of knocked off all the white petals off of the blooms of the yarrow. I also have a yarrow tincture video. And things look pretty beaten down. The widow's cross, which is the succulent that grows on the exposed rocks. There's exposed rocks all over my front area. That's all dead. That just comes up in February, March, April. And then it just gets too hot and it fries to a crisp. So that's what the brown areas are. But it was gorgeous. Okay, so you're looking at the lower, almost half of the lower garden, what I call the lower garden. And on the right area of your screen, that corn is the painted wapsie. And I can see from here that one blew down, at least one blew down yesterday in the storm. I'm hoping that rights itself. They often say just leave it alone and let it pick itself back up. The left was it wasn't over, but it was beaten down and like an umbrella during the storm. I couldn't film because it was lightning like crazy and I was hiding out on the porch with my binoculars, but it looks fabulous now. This is the Sweet Luck corn that was developed by Daryl Luck, and it looks absolutely fabulous. It loves rain. So if it can survive the storm, you know, you got a chance. Now the painted wapsie went in first. I've got tassels. It's an early corn. That's a flower corn. In between there you have a row of tomatoes, and I've gone around those twice, picking off all the lower leaves and supporting them up against the cattle panel. 2 rows of my family's heirloom wild goose pea there, and then on the other side of the corn is my sweet potatoes. That's kind of got planted last. Okay, my elderberries are just to the left of the lower garden on the side of the hill. They get probably the most sun in the whole yard. The big elderberry on the right side have already lost the white petal on the flower. It's a very small flower, very tiny berry that emerges. So they've lost the white petals from the storm. You can see where the flowers are for the white petals. The most berries I'll have is on the big one on the right, because the big one on the left, half of it broke in that tornado. So what I did this year to protect this is I had my helper put in a fence of fishing line. 2 rows of fishing line has kept the deer out of there, believe it or not. So, and it hasn't been weed whacked, because so many of what happens with elderberry is you get all these sprouts coming up. 2 feet away from the plant, you'll get a sprout coming up and out of the ground. And, you know, I guess they don't make berries the first year, but I didn't want to accidentally cut those down. Hey everybody. Whew. I'm back up at the top. I decided I have to do this video, this garden update, in 2 parts. So jump on over to the part 2 tomorrow and I'll get that out for you. I didn't even get over to the side garden, the orchard, talk about the cistern. And there's a lot to talk about Middle Tennessee, the Duck River, and a lot more stuff that I learned about yesterday on my trip down to see my family. So I look forward to sharing that. I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already. Scroll down and click the bell so you won't miss an episode. And be sure to check my community page for regular posts. I like to keep people informed. I like to cheer people up with pretty pictures. And so please do check in there and see what's going on with me. Thanks a lot, and God bless. I'll see you in the next video.